1st, 2nd, 3rd November? Is that winter? Are we into winter yet? Or is it still autumn? I'm just asking because I'm not very sure of my autumnatisms. I don't really know my autumnatisms. I'm trying to put a brave face on it. Somebody's got to try and put a brave face on it. What did you go out as at Halloween? What did guys as? I went out as somebody who was completely devastated to his core by all the hullabaloo around his football team right now, and that wasn't easy. That was a hell of a disguise. That was a lot of makeup, quite the maquillage, quite the motley, quite the costume was required for that. I don't think I managed to pull it off. So today, that I'm recording this on Friday, I went round Bingham's Pond. You know Bingham's Pond? It's the Jury's Pond Hotel just next to it. You know, that petrol station that's got the wee Marks and Spencers in it, and then you get Garton Naval Hospital up behind it. Absolutely beautiful. Bingham's Pond. I've been going around it for decades now. I would imagine. I've been continuously round and round it. I mean, imagine just walking round and round in circles, going round and round in circles and never getting anywhere. How bad would it? We're not doing metaphors. We're not doing analogies. Okay. Bingham's Pond features in the poem called Winter, by Edwin Morgan, and yet today it's creepily warm. And I always imagine when I'm crossing the dual carriageway out to the west, or the Great Western Road, as Hipsway called it in the mid-80s. I always imagine that Edwin Morgan's flat, with a little balcony, is directly the other side of the motorway, or the dual carriageway. It's not motorway at that point, but you think it's just facing onto the pond because of the way he writes about it, because you associate it with him when you remember back even a few hours ago to walking over to that pond across Great Western Road. But no, it's a bit further back. It's down the road a piece. If you're coming from Annie's Land Cross and you're heading towards the town or heading towards the Tapperbyers Roads, the pond's on your right, but before you get there, on your left hand side is those two kind of modernist flats. The modernist flats, big apartment buildings, they would probably call them in the States. They've all got balconies on them. I think they've been there since like the 50s or something. I think they were built in the 50s, but Edwin Morgan was in there. Just the flats suited his poetry. The wee documentary I watched about him. But I did see Edwin Morgan. I did go to a reading by Edwin Morgan back. Him and Tom Leonard, it was in the basement of John Smith's bookshop. About 1998. It's one of the loveliest nights of my life. It was absolutely fantastic because I do other things. It's not just football, It's not just football. For example, I'm walking around Bingham's Pond today. The swan on Bingham's Pond, a ghost comes and goes. That's from the poem Winter by Edwin. And you think I need to check out what year he wrote it in, because I don't know what the weather was like back then. It's the 1st of November. I'm walking around this pond and it's like summertime. I could get away the day and I could walk around it, and it's roasting creepily warm, and the sun's out and it looks absolutely lovely. And I'm looking at the birds and all that, and I'm trying to the ducks and all that, the swans just grow up, and there's these ones I don't really know their names, and I've been seeing them for, as I say, since about 2002. I've been walking around that pond regularly, and there's only a certain amount of birds, different types of birds that are in it. Black-headed gulls, and is it grebes or mersangers? And there's notices up telling you what they are, and I don't bother looking at the notices. I looked at them once years ago, and I can't even remember the names, because it's like only football stuff sticks in my brain, and even then I'm having trouble remembering the football stuff now. But it's like I can't get an interest in anything else. But I'd like to try and kid on. I'm interested, and there's these. Are they called mersangers or the grebes? But they're like fancy ducks, and the mallards are quite fancy as ducks go as well. And you've got your tufted ducks. I love the wee tufted ducks. They look like the wee toys you would actually put in the bath. And there'll be tufts that they get their name from, but they're kind of matte, like plastic, beautiful wee things, really cute and all that. But there's these ones that they're kind of like long necked, they're kind of like half swan, half duck, and I don't really know what they're called. But the first time I saw them, like 20 odd years ago, it's in that pond. The first time I noticed them, there's only one or two of them. I don't know if it's the young ones that look they're still young, but they're full size, they're adult size, or if it's males that want to breed or something like that. There's something about them that will do this to them. But I noticed there's only a few of them that are like this. But the first time I noticed it, I saw this one, and it seems to have a kind of, it's almost like somebody said a go at it with like a pink highlighter pen, and it hasn't been properly washed. It's been going around in the pond, and it's eventually all washed out, the highlighter marker stuff. But it's still, there's a kind of hue. It's got this white undercarriage, lovely up to its white neck, and it's just as it hits the water. The birds have a chest, like kind of chest area as it hits the water. It's got this kind of. The first time I saw it, I thought it, or somebody's fly tipped a tin of dye or something into this pond, and that poor bird has kind of sailed through it, and it won't wash out. It's got a wee, it's kind of day glow. It's not actually a different colour. It's just given it a pinkish kind of hue, a kind of reflection. And I didn't realise it was real. I didn't realise it was actually part of the bird's kind of plumage until I'd seen it, you know, for years on end, until I'd seen it for a long time. I thought at first it was just something that had happened to it. It wasn't real. It wasn't actually part of the, but it wasn't part of the plan. It's only, a few years down the line you realise it's what it's supposed to look like, and that's actually. And we're not doing metaphors. We're not doing analogies of that. And I'm walking around the pond, seeing that, and there's foreign tourists and that looking at taking photographs of the birds, and it's really nice. And then you've got this kind of bend, it bends round the pond. It's kind of circular, if you know Bingham's Pond. And I can see over at the other bank of the pond a heron, a big grey heron standing. And you don't need to know much about birds to know what herons look like. And they're so striking. They're weird, but they stand out, and it's just standing there, tall, gangly, kind of a strange bird, basically. But it doesn't seem to be doing it. It's just doing the same thing. It's just standing there, concentrating the same thing, and you're thinking, what's that achieving? What is that actually achieving? And then obviously when it sees a fish or whatever it is it's looking for, it whom bam, it goes down there, and then everything kicks into place. You realise exactly what it's up to. It's got the meal it's looking for, and I'm watching it thinking it's quite tall, it's impressive, but it's also a bit kind of weird looking, and in many ways it's a bit like Philippe Clement. And then just at that, I can see something scurrying as I'm hitting the straight again, the big straight bit of the path up the side of the pond. The heron, as I was coming around towards it, just got up and flew away. It's like, all right, it's away, it's gone. And I'm going up the straight bit, and I can see there's so many leaves about just now because it's autumn. There's lots of brown leaves in the ground. If you've ever seen a rodent in your entire life at any point, you will have that peripheral vision where if you see a leaf getting blown in the wind and it's brown and it's got the stem, it's kind of tail like, you go, that's a mouse, that's a rat, that's what. But it's a leaf. This time it wasn't. It was a mouse, and there was another one. Or was it a vole, or was it something bigger? But I don't think it was the R word thing, but there was one, there was two, there was three, and there was scurrying about in this path, kind of halfway between me and this woman who was on the other side. She's walking towards me with a golden retriever, and the golden retriever just bolts, and I'm thinking, go for it, big man, you get those. And the woman's terrified that her dog's going to come back to her with a half-eaten rodent, so she's terrified. But I'm also terrified of the mice or whatever they are. So I want the dog to chase them, and if they shoot up, and they're kind of banking up one side, and then they shoot into the pond, into the reeds and all that. The pond on the other side, and I'm thinking that let's be. But and she's like, they were just mice, weren't they? They just looked like mice. And I'm thinking, I said, they were. Says, I was, I've seen the bigger stuff. I didn't want to say rat because the woman looked like she was kind of freaking out. So I didn't actually mention it. Was I've seen the bigger stuff, and they don't look like that. So I think they're trying to make out that I wasn't bothered. I was bothered. I love that golden retriever. Thanks, pal. Because I'd been in the after lockdown, the end of the first kind of the last lockdown. I went down to Bingham's Pond there, and there was a rat running back and forth on the bank, pulling a pizza, a discarded pizza. Somebody had obviously been out celebrating the end of lockdown the night before and had a pizza and couldn't finish it. What a loser! And he chucked it over into the grass, and this rat was jumping back and forth getting it. And I was like, I'm not coming back to Bingham's Pond for a while, but I was back the other day, and it was smaller things. It's get better over time. We're not doing that. We're not doing. How you doing, folks? This is your Fatec Rangers are back at Hampden for the 9th time in 12 months, I think. Preview pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet's Friday night preview pod. It was Craig Ray hosting and Stuart Weir guesting. So Craig and Stuart, cracking pod. They did just going over all the traumas of Wednesday night and having a wee look towards this Sunday's semi-final of the League Cup against Motherwell at Hampden. Like what I'm about to do now, I'm coming to you in association, as I say, with Jersnet. Their live pods, 9 o'clock Friday night, 9:30 Sunday nights, but check it out on YouTube. and other social media platforms. And I'm also coming to you in association with foreign teams that you've seen playing against your club that you quite admired. When I was really wee, I used to get Shoot magazine. I was obsessed with the football and the football, the focus thing, the player profile thing they had in the back page. That was iconic. That was great, wasn't it? That was my favourite bit, where you go to a footballer and you asked him, what was his favourite pre-match meal, who was his favourite movie star, what was his favourite music, and what was the opponent he hated playing against, and who was the best player he'd ever played against, stuff like that. And what I used to do, because there was no professional footballers in my family, and I didn't really care about that anyway, I would ask my dad or my auntie who took me to my first Rangers game, or various uncles who'd all been to anybody I knew, who'd come into the house or anything, that had been to football matches, that had beaten it, because I'd only been to maybe a couple as a kid, and I just thought it was the be all and end all was going to football matches. It was the greatest feeling ever to go to an actual professional football match. I would interview them with the questions from the player profile thing, but instead of asking them about opponents who they'd played against and who they'd played for, I was asked about the team they support and who they play. So I'm asking my auntie, what's the best opposition player you've seen, as a Rangers supporter going to Ibrox? And she said Mario Kempes, playing for Valencia. That's the coolest answer ever. As a supporter, you can just get that cool. Mario Kempes playing for Valencia. And because I had the first World Cup final, I remember, it was Mario Kempes who scored 2 goals. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But I remember us drawing one each in Valencia. I remember that. In the Cup Winners' Cup in 79-80, early rounds of it, thinking that's us through, obviously, because we've drawn the away game in Spain, and then Valencia came to Ibrox and beat us 3-1. I'd been at my first Rangers game by that point, but I wasn't at that one. I wasn't going regularly yet. I remember Annie talking about Kempes, Valencia being brilliant, and Kempes scoring these 2 goals that were unbelievable, like nothing she'd ever seen before. And it took me years. I think it was actually YouTube that I first saw those goals. It took me years to actually see them, and she wasn't joking. A different class. And in Valencia, I got to see him for the first time 20 years later, playing us in the Champions League in 2009. Sorry, 1989-2000. And that's Rangers supporters of my generation. That's one of the teams I would say is one of the best teams I've ever seen playing against Rangers. They beat us 2-1 on the night, having beat us 3-1 in 79-80, and they went on to win the Cup Winners' Cup. In 79-80, they beat Arsenal in the final on penalties in the Heysel. 0-0. Graham Rix missing a penalty for Arsenal, and here they went on to the Champions League final this season in 99-2000 and the next season, and lost both times. But guys came in jet and all that, but they were smashing. They were just so street smart, so streetwise, so slick, so cool. It was just lovely. Looking back, you're gutted that they beat us on the night, but everybody straight away. I talked to a lot of guys around about my age. They're always like, "Aye, that Valencia side, they were class, man. They were absolutely class." A lot of admiration. It's always a great strip, Valencia, isn't it? Either the all white or the black shorts with the always silky. I think it's the first team Celtic played in European competition, the old Fairs Cup, and Valencia were masters of the old Fairs Cup. Also won it in the UEFA Cup phase, and won the Cup Winners' Cup, and of course, I think Alfredo Di Stefano was their manager when they won the Cup Winners' Cup, and we played them again. They lost those 2 successive Champions League finals. We played them again in 2010-11, I think it was. Ibrox drew 1 each, so they're scoring a goal less every time they come to Ibrox in European competition. I was at that one as well. That was a great night. And I never went to Valencia. I never saw, in the times we played Valencia, I never went over to Mestalla, but I've been outside Mestalla, because when we played Villarreal in 2005-06 Champions League, last 16, I went there, and straight away I'm reminded of a pennant. My nana, my maternal grandmother, my paternal grandmother was my gran. I don't know if you did this as well, but my maternal grandmother was my nana, and she, was one of the first people, known to our universe, that went on a package holiday to Spain in the 70s. And at some point, she went a day trip to Valencia, and she brought me back a pennant. She brought me back the bullfighting poster, but it was sombreros and all that kind of stuff. And when that felt really exotic, it was brilliant. A sombrero, fantastic, all that kind of stuff. She brought back plenty of presents. She was always really great to us, the grandkids, and the bullfighting poster, but also a Valencia pennant, for Valencia FC, or Valencia CF. And I'm like, And I think, is that a bat? Is that a bat on their badge? And I had it up my bedroom wall, and if I was having one of the nights where I couldn't get to sleep or I was trying to stay awake, and I'd be looking at all this stuff on the walls, I had lots of pennants up and stuff like that, and posters, and I was just looking up at this Valencia. Why is it CF? Club football? That makes no sense. And just, I don't know what happened to that pennant, 'cause I've got a lot of pennants still, as you might have noticed. Yeah, I've still got a lot of pennants, but from that, a lot of them date back to that era when I was at primary school, but I seem to have lost the Valencia one for some reason. But it's something that stuck with me, and I went to Valencia. You went to see his, if you've been to either the trips, day trips through Rangers, playing Villarreal, you fly into Valencia and you spend a day in Valencia. And I tried to, the day trips, only been a few, the official day trips, but I tried to avoid. I tried to take a big break from the bevying, um, knowing that I want to get a few beers in before the game and what have you. So I don't want to get too wasted and forget the game, especially when it's a Champions League last 6. Epic experience. We played Villarreal, but in Valencia for the day. So I went and I looked at I went to Mestalla, couldn't get in, it was shut. And I went to Levante's ground, couldn't get in, it was shut. But it's it's a beautiful city. And I remember, dark irony, the river, they'd I diverted the river, I think, in the 60s because of flooding. And it was all, so you'd go across these bridges and all that. There's usually a river in a city, but they have it so landscaped, and it's beautiful. A beautiful, beautiful place. A lovely, an amazing bus journey from Valencia to Villarreal. Really amazing landscape, oranges and the mountains in the background, so flat. And I just want to say it just because it's what's happening over there, what's happened in Valencia this week is absolutely tragic, absolutely awful. Your heart just goes out to them. And not that there's anybody going to be Valencia's got time to listen to a bloody football podcast at times like this, but I think just as football fans, you get a kind of feeling. I think when you see somebody else's football team coming to your ground, you're getting their culture. You're getting that's the exchange of cultures basically, and it's a beautiful thing. In Valencia, always really admired Los Che, and it's what's happening over there is absolutely heartbreaking. Lots of other tragic stuff happening in the world just now, but difficult to mention without people thinking you're pushing a political agenda and like that. But I don't think anybody could have anything other than the deepest sympathy for the people of Valencia right now. And I want to mention that, and I try to maybe change it to also featuring rain, unfortunately, in Spanish football, but to try and make things nicer for you. I don't know if you've seen the thing about the internet today, on the old internet, on social media. If you just key in Copa del Rey, Osasuna, it's something I would normally find probably a bit mawkish or a bit exploitative almost. But it really got to me. I was watching it earlier on tonight, and I was actually in tears. Which you're supposed to be, but I just don't always fall for that kind of stuff. But this time I was in hook, line and sinker. And it's a young Osasuna fan who his team's playing, it was this week, they were playing, I can't remember their name, sorry, a lower league Spanish side in the Copa del Rey, but this place was like 650 miles or something from Pamplona, and he's done the whole trip by bus on his own. And the game get cancelled. The game get postponed because of this horrendous weather they're experiencing in Spain. And travel and support's not a big thing in Spain, as you know, particularly not for that distance or that kind of game. And I think that the story is the team found out about it. Osasuna officials found out about this young fella. I think he'd be going overnight and stuff. I've been in the bus station at Bilbao. I've been on the bus from Bilbao to San Sebastian, which is like an hour. But this fella's gone sick, and it's again an amazing, beautiful, beautiful journey, completely opposite of the one I took from Valencia to Villarreal. This was lovely as well, in a completely different way. But this boy's, it's the dedication of the young fan. And I think that's what kind of brought it home. It made it really click with me, and with a lot of this thing's been retweeted to heck. But he's travelled 650 miles by bus. The games, the team they track him down via social media, get his phone, they phone him. I don't know if it's the general manager or the manager of the club. I don't really know anything about Osasuna these days. I've been keeping up with my Liga stuff, but he phones him and just says, "No, get a taxi. No, we'll pay for the taxi. Get a taxi to the airport. You're coming on the plane, whereas you're getting the official team flight back up the road, mate." And then the boy goes to the airport and all that. You see him, and they're filming it, and that's the you could say, well, that's a bit cynical. And there's music, kind of Celine Dion, soaring music underneath, which actually works. It actually suits it, because it was really, really hitting home with me. It's a young boy. He's about 18, 19, and he's kind of just a typical gawky teenager, big skinny fella with the big glasses and all that. And yes, I did. I was skinny when I was that age, and I had my glasses and all that as well. And Osasuna, famously, for Rangers fans, they played their first ever game in European competition at Ibrox, and it was only the second European game I ever went to. Craig Patterson in the team in rain, beating them 1-0, and I think it might be the first Rangers game I ever went to on my own. Because my mates were on a bad season, my pals weren't interested. It was teaming down. I don't think my aunt and uncle were going either, and all that. And I was just on the supporters bus up there, and I just went to myself, and I get soaked and all that. And I think there's something about that. Saw Osasuna at Ibrox again under Walter when he came in as replacement for useless foreign manager Paul Le Guen, who had been brilliant for us in Europe and had got in. And his legacy was we had a tie against Hapoel Tel Aviv, which Walter waltzed, and then next round in the UEFA Cup we got Osasuna back at Ibrox, and Brahim Hendani late equaliser from long range in the first leg, and again they put us out after the second leg. But I think what it was watching that young boy was just that thing of unadulterated, unfiltered love for your football team, getting the kind of reward it deserves. He had that. The team just turns around and says, "No, thank you. By the way, thank you, and you can just get on the plane with us. You're the star here." And I think every one of us deserves that as football supporters. And I think it's because it's been such a horrible few days. It's just been horrible. We put too much into football. I know there's so much else going on in the world, and I think a lot of people divert it all into the football, and myself included, my own way. And it's just been kind of horrible to see so many Rangers fans so angry and so, kind of hateful almost towards the manager and towards other stuff at the club. And it's not everybody's like, most people aren't. Most people are just expressing their concern and thinking, that I support this team and it's time for the manager to go. We don't like him, but I've not really felt like that, and it's been a bad few days. And it was just nice to see something completely, completely just pure, if you like, as close as we can get to purity in football. A young supporter who just doesn't matter what the score is, doesn't matter how far I've got to go. I love that team, and that's where a lot of the anger towards Rangers is coming from fans, because the fans have been putting in so much, because we've been in the fourth tier and all that in 2012, and for Philippe Clement to be mentioning it to us is a bit dodgy. It's a bit sensitive. You've got to be careful with that. You maybe have got to be attached to the club longer and have proved yourself more before you can start talking to us about 2012. But I know why he's doing it, and that's we've been through a lot, and I'm making jokes about the fact that I'm not interested in anything else. But I try to pretend sometimes that I've got a life outside football, that I do have other interests. I talk about Heat, the film Heat. I only talk about the one film because it's the only one I've watched. I just would rather watch football. I've only managed to watch one film in my life, so I keep going on about it to try and make out that I've got a life. What I do is I stop when it comes to tactical analysis, and I love tactical analysis. I love the stats, stats bomb and all that kind of stuff. But I can feel myself like, no, I can't get in. If I go into that, I'm never coming back out. I will just go in there and never come back out. I need to have a life outside the football. I need to have other interests, and I've got to stop. But what that means is, for example, Adam Thornton. Adam, if you Heart and Hand or whatever. What it means for me, first of all, is I only watch free podcasts. So at Heart and Hand, I'm not signed up to Patreon or anything like that. I'll just watch the 2 free podcasts they put out. Or the free podcast they put out after every game, I think it is. And I will watch Rangers Review. I've got a lot of stuff out there that's for free. I've not signed up to it. I don't pay for it like that, so I don't get the extra stuff. Same with all. But if anything else, I don't have enough time, to watch the free podcasts that I would like to watch. Never mind watching all the ones you would pay for. I don't have Rangers TV either, because I would just be on it all the time. I need to kind of ration myself, to be honest. So it means that somebody like Adam Thornton, who I've spoke to him via Twitter a couple of times, but I've never met him personally. But he's well known in Rangers social media circles, and should be, because he's what a brain he's got. What an ability to analyse things, fantastic. And it just seems like a really nice guy. He seems really chilled out. He seems level-headed, which is what you need. It's just there becomes certain people that you'll know yourself. If you're on social media, you're into the Rangers, there'll be certain folk whose opinions you want to get. You want to know what they're thinking. And he's one of the guys that I would just see stuff pop up and, oh, he thinks that. Oh dear, right, okay. You take him seriously, what he's talking about, because you know he's coming from a genuine place. And I know he knows his stuff, but today is probably the first time I've watched a whole pod and his specialised subject, tactics and the stats that are involved. And just to give credit where it's due, it's the Rangers review, and it's one of the most recent pods. It's titled "Did Rangers Really Deserve More Against Aberdeen?" So that's it's on Rangers review. I watched it on YouTube, and it's a half-hour pod, and it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. It's so well done. He obviously does this all the time on Heart and Hand and what have you. So he's he's just pretty relaxed as he turns this stuff, but he's not relaxed. That's the thing. He's obviously raging, but he's raging in a I've been watching this for years and I'm done with it sort of way, and not in a plastic. Oh, I'm going to start throwing things about all over the place and crying and stuff like that to get likes and what he's. That's why you can trust the stuff it's coming from, because you know it's meant, and I felt terrible. My heart was sinking watching it, because I want so badly to stick up for Philippe Clement, and I want to keep the manager. So I know it's crazy just to want to keep a manager for the sake of keeping a manager, to keep him for more than a year. But this was just, you couldn't argue with it, because it's the stats are there, the graphs are there. And I know lies, damn lies and statistics, but I do like to go with the facts myself at times, and I'm sick of imagining what I want to be happening at Rangers. We've lost this game because we're rebuilding, etc. And there it was just essentially what Adam and it was Derek Clark that was hosting it. What they're doing is just telling you how it has gone wrong. How Rangers are playing, how they're are not playing, as the case may be. And offering a few solutions and thinking it's the same as the rest of us. You can think why are we so shit up front, etc. Why are we so bad at the back? That's not a good combination for a football team. But the facts that are there to support this, it was so depressing, and and you could see, I think Adam he's sick of it. He's had enough of Rangers playing the way they're playing or not playing, as the case may be. And that had me I was kind of mulling this over, and it's mulling it over is all I've ever really been doing. When this mounting momentum to get rid of the manager, or to basically have him on gardening leave or something, maybe even while still in charge of the team. I don't know, knowing that we're going to bring somebody else in next season, but it's really weird. All I've really been trying to do is just say, well, what's the reasons for keeping them? What's the reasons for keeping Philippe Clement? You need to look at that when you're thinking about doing something as huge as sacking the Rangers manager, even though we're starting to get used to it. Why would you keep him? And every time I go through the thing I'm finding with so much of the chat the last few days has been backed up by what the manager was saying in Friday's pre-match presser. I'm in a different starting position about this season than most people, or I'm in a position where I thought this was exactly how it was going to go. I thought it was going to be like this. The only difference, the only X factor, the only thing that's kind of queer in the pitch is Aberdeen being so bloody good. Aberdeen's crazily good start to the season, and that's something they haven't had. Well, basically they set a record the other night. I don't think this is their longest unbeaten run ever at the start of a season. It's a kind of freak event, if you like. It's 30 years since they've had a team that's done anything approaching this, and it is only still the start of the season. We're not even through we're not even completely through the first round of league fixtures yet. It's a quarter of the season gone, but I feel as if it's too early to even think that they're going to maintain that kind of momentum. And as our manager was saying, and as I was saying in the preview pod ahead of the game to Aberdeen, my preview pod on this wee channel here, they don't have European football. And European football this season has devastated St Mirren, Kilmarnock and Hearts, who all had fantastic runs last season under the same managers. that's what got them into Europe in the first place. And what that's done to them this season, their start to the season, proves how difficult it is to maintain any momentum in the league, as well as keep your head above water in Europe, which is what Rangers. That's one of the things I think Philippe Clement's done reasonably well this season. We have won every weekend fixture after our Wednesday or Thursday European fixture. All 5 times that's happened. They've all been home games, but I feel as if we were always poor. Always a chance we're going to be really poor. Usually we drop points when we're playing a weekend league fixture on the Sunday after a European game, and Clement has won a lot of them. So I feel as if that's mitigating, that's amelioration, if you like. But also, I thought that it was just common knowledge been said by Clement himself in the summer, and I'm going to have to look at this the John Bennett video that he brought out when he was doing the announcement, or doing the kind of apology to the fans, the explanation about us having to move to Hampden. I'm sure it was made pretty clear in that there was a kind of new era of austerity this season. And as such, I came into this season thinking we're going to finish second. I didn't think we were going to finish any lower than second. Aberdeen, I would say, are the problem there, and it's a kind of random. I don't think we can really do anything about Aberdeen suddenly hitting upon a great manager who's got them off to this kind of start. We're going to have to do it when we play them the next 3 times we play them. But in the league, at least. But there's not a lot we can do about them getting that kind of manager and hitting the ground running in that kind of way. I thought it was a reset. I thought we're selling more players than we're bringing in, and we're selling better quality than we're going to be able to bring in, and the manager was going to have to facilitate something to compensate for that. He was going to have to get a system in there and get a way of playing and just get a whole kind of philosophy into our entire squad that was going to let us basically excel in domestic football and Europe on the cheap. And for me, that requires you to strip something right down to the basics. And he said himself, as he reiterated today in his press conference, that was going to take more than one transfer window. So I'm expecting us to be bad just now, basically. And I'm expecting us to stumble through games at home, which we have done. And that's made worse by the fact we didn't even have a home, for the first 2 months of the season, and lose games away from home. To Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, who we always struggle against. Every Rangers manager the last 10 years has struggled against. Not necessarily to lose to Aberdeen. We would always drop points at Pittodrie. Frequently drop points at Pittodrie. Not always. We lose there rarely. But when you add the Jimmy Thelin factor to Aberdeen, then they're going to beat us. Only by a single goal. I know they dominated us tactically. We dominated possession, but it's still only by a single goal. Sometimes you have to look at the hard facts if we're doing kind of statistical analysis. So I didn't think we're really I wasn't expecting this to be great. I was expecting the football to be poor because this is what it's going to look like. And I feel as if people keep repeating, as long as we can see signs of progress, we don't mind getting beat. That's a lie. I think you're kidding yourself on. We would really mind getting beat. We always really mind it, and if Rangers play well, we just get angrier about the fact that we couldn't take it to the point where we won. It happens all the time. When we get put in the League Cup and the Scottish Cup by St Mirren and by St Johnstone in last minute, last ditch fashion in the season that we won the league unbeaten, people were raging. Because if you can win the league unbeaten, why are you chucking it right at the death against St Mirren and against St Johnstone in the 2 cup competitions? We hadn't won anything since before. We hadn't won a major trophy since before 2012. So it was a major achievement. But people, the better you do, it seems the angrier everybody gets when you don't, reap the maximum benefits from that in terms of trophies, etc. So for me, we're looking at what it's like to be rebuilding. It's going to have a material effect on how we play, a material effect on results. It is doing, and it's no worse than I thought it was going to be. Other things that are thrown at the manager. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here a lot of times. I'm not for 1 second arguing that the football's crap from Rangers. There's no arguing with that. It's more about why. I don't mean tactically. I just mean why structurally, in terms of the structure of the club. I'm just weighing up the options to make sure if we're going to sack the manager, it's a major thing. You've got to make sure that we're getting it right. It seems sometimes, I think, that if you offer any kind of mitigation at all, people are so caught up in this manager's got to go. I hate him. It becomes I hate him. People are talking about him being gaslighting us and being ridiculously stubborn and arrogant. You want a manager who can stick by his principles. You want a manager who's going to stick to his own guns, who's got a way of doing things and he wants to see it through. You don't want somebody who's going to just chop. This is what Michael Beale had to go for because he couldn't nail down. He couldn't stick to one set of tactics. He was always overcomplicating stuff. Um, Clement also been accused of overcomplicating Scottish football, but at the same time he's been told that he's wedded to a 4-2-3-1. And I'm going to change it to welded because welded sounds more staunch. It might get him kind of, it might get people on side. It's our connection with the shipyards and what have you. But he's wedded to this 4-2-3-1. People keep telling us at the same time as they tell us there's no discernible style to his teams. Now I know style is different from formation, but I think some people mean stylish as opposed to just the style in which they play. I don't think you can have both things at the same time. Just like he doesn't seem to know what his best team is. He doesn't seem to know who he's going to play, and he does make the dropping Hefty the other night was one that really peed me off as much as anybody else. But at the same time, we're saying that opposition teams have got them totally worked out. They know exactly how to play against them. Well, they must know a set formation. They must have an idea. We must have an identity if other teams can work it out beforehand. We can't. Some of the accusations and criticisms we throw at Philippe Clement's football, they just don't stack up, and basically they cancel each other out, and that's what I'm trying to go against. Just try to make sure that we get this right if we're going to get rid of this manager. For me, it's you can get paralysis by analysis, as the Americans would say. And I don't think I like to analyse exactly what is going on here, but sometimes I think you need to just look at results, and I just think on paper it makes sense. And as the manager was pointing out in his press, and I've tried to write down some of his quotes here from the press conference today, because his speaking, his kind of not broken English, but he's speaking a second language. Basically, anybody talking at a press conference doesn't speak in complete, perfect sentences, but so some of this might not make the best of sense. But at the start of his press conference today, I was wondering, he was being a bit pig-headed and what have you. I think he was a bit anti. The media had enough, but I quite like that. If it was Walter or whatever coming out there and ripping into journalists, I think we quite enjoyed that. There's no injury updates, by the way, the press conference. It's just I think we can be sure that Hefty's Hefty's definitely rested. He'll be fit to go on Sunday. But the manager he didn't get a chance to talk about injuries and what have you. It was just all about does the board still believe in him? Are they still behind his project? And that's the thing. People are talking about it as a project. The media are asking him about his project, and yet expecting that project to have be bearing fruit, be at its maximum performance within 3 months. If it's a kind of project that's required, the depth and complexity that's required to get us winning trophies for 3 or 4 seasons in the bounce, at a time with far less expenditure than we're used to, then it's going to take a while to work it. I've got a great line. I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for Sunday night on Jersnet. I'm supposed to be in Jersnet on Sunday night, so I've got a really good line that I'm going to use for that. It's terrible. It's so cliched, but he talked. People are saying, what is it? Don Russell asked him, what are you going to do? What do you think went wrong the other night? How can you set it better? And it was like, by the right conclusions, the right attitude, the right mentality, the right spirit. I don't know what the conclusions mean. I think this means finish putting the ball in the back of the net. That can change all of that, because I did it last season. We did it last season. I think he was emphasising it's about we, not me. And he means last season he came in and of course he turned it around. We got the great bounce from him. Wins his first game 4-0, got up to Dens Park, win 5-0, beat Hearts with a last minute, equaliser and injury time winner. It's all very exciting when he comes a new manager bounce. And that's for me what it is. We're going to come up against an undertow. There's an undertow anyway from having the entire infrastructure ripped out in 2012. And then you're getting rid of the manager, and people seem to be putting this line now. We should get in a temporary manager, a caretaker manager until the end of the season, because it's a way of getting. I think it's a way of just saying we want to sack Clement. but we've said so often that we can't keep sacking managers in the middle of the season. That we need to have a cover story for that now. Get a new manager and the proper guy in at the beginning of next season. So let's have 3 managers to the price of one. Seems to be the over the space of a year, and somehow that's better than keeping Clement. It doesn't make sense, but he said we need to get more consistency in the good moments. It's the small margins, and he's saying that basically players can turn it around this season the same way they turned it around last season. To be admitted, to be honest, they're not going to have new manager bounce when he's the same manager. So I think he's got that one a bit wrong. But the key for me was in the middle of this press conference, just 12 minutes that was shown on YouTube. Anyway, he talks about why he's got this new contract. One of the most horrible kind of inferences I thought this week or on Wednesday night was Chris Boydie, Rangers legend, but he was making out that Clement had exploited the board, exploited the fact that we don't have, CEO, we don't have a permanent chairman, directors of football, the full works. We don't have anybody really, and he's exploited this to get an extra year in his contract. I found that quite kind of poor. I thought that was a bit of a nasty characterisation by Boydie there, and for me, the manager, I thought it was a case of the manager is bitten off, or the board haven't told him the full extent of the problems at Rangers. He's realised that in the summer. He's realised he's not going to get the money he thought he was going to get, and it's a case of I'm out of here. And they're like, no, well, but you fancy just like being here forever to take care of the rebuild? We'll give you an extra year in your contract. You better. And to be fair, Clement has only hinted at this. He hasn't gone through his agents and all that and created all sorts of stooshy about it. I've been betrayed by this club or whatever. He's just got on with it. And that's been held against him as he's exploiting as it must suit him as well, because now we think he's a duff manager. He's won the 3 Belgian league titles, and that's with across 2 different clubs. It's a good league, the Belgian league. He's not a bad manager. He might be the wrong manager to say, but he's not the bad man. He's not a bad manager. He was at Monaco as well. Didn't work out from there, but it wasn't a disaster he had there either. And that's a great level. So I don't think he's in the kind of guy that's going to just be so desperate to get a job somewhere that he starts conning people. And I don't care how bad the situation is with our boardroom. Nobody was going to be giving him an extension in his contract unless they thought he was worth it. He said that the project he started in June was different from the one that he started in October. So basically, the whole what he had to do, what was the situation he was, thought he was walking into, was totally different from the one he actually got. He thought he was going to be able to buy a certain amount of players and what have you. I think he was told you're going to have to get rid of so many more before you can get anybody in. He says that's why there were talks about what to do and negotiations from both sides. And it's a really big job, and that's why I got a new contract. So he's hinting to us. He's saying, listen, and he's saying this has started again. He's saying it started in the summer. It started in the summer, and it was such a massive job that I deserve to get a new contract. I deserve to get an extension to my contract. And he's saying the way the club was being run, and it had been explained to him by the board, all the board together, he's saying it was not sustainable. And he added today, the board didn't want to go back to 2012 when the club was bankrupt. We don't like him talking about this kind of stuff, but it needs to be spoken about. We are quite happy to mention 2012 all the time. We're talking, first time since 2012 we've done this, and since we were back in the top flight, we talk about it, but we don't. We talk of it, but we don't talk about it. We don't face up to what actually happened in 2012 and the undertow that that's creating. And it's an undertow I think we need to face up to at some point and just push through it by keeping him manager instead of sacking him again for short-term gain. It's going to come back to haunt us this time next year again. So he talked about they're now at the start of a better period. You don't see it in results just now. That's true. That's totally true. But there is a foundation being built for the future for a more healthy club to grow out of that. And everybody knew it would not be possible in one transfer window. He mentioned, or he talked about the fact that during the summer he couldn't get rid of enough players to finance the players that he wanted to get in. You've got young players coming in, You need a big cut of wages in the squad. There's a lot of transfers. And we wanted more players being transferred out of the club to get more in, but that wasn't possible. And you've got, like Scott Wright and Ben Davis only leaving the club on loan or being sold or whatever at the last moment. I think Dessers, there's a lot of talk about how Dessers was various offers on the table for him that he obviously didn't want to take. Tav, I think, was supposed to be leaving as well. That was a big rumour that Tav was going to be leaving, but that never happened. And he's still captain, so who knows. But clearly we didn't get rid of the players that we wanted to in order to finance more coming in, and that's why I think you see gaps in the team. In this 4-2-3-1, we've never had players to play this 4-2-3-1, and that to me actually demonstrates why he's trying to lay down a template. He's actually here for the long term, because we've never had a six, we've never had the proper centre forwards. Maybe Danilo, but he's constantly injured. We're tens on a particularly great. Well, Bajrami could be if he gets more of a chance in there. He's got to cover the other areas because we're losing Abdallah Sima, we're losing Cortez to injury, we lost Sima to injury and transfer and the Africa Cup of Nations. We're just not seeing him with the kind of players, the kind of squad he has, and I think it's as if he's saying to himself, I'm just going to get the formation right. Even if it's players that are out of position, anybody who comes into this first team is going to know exactly what the formation is. I'm terrified about Spurs. On the 12th of December. We're away to Olympiacos and Nice next in November, and he doesn't lose away games in Europe. He just doesn't lose away games in Europe. We've only scored 2 goals away from home domestically. Well, we've only conceded 2 goals at home domestically, but away from home in Europe, he's got a fantastic record, some cracking results in his whole time at the club. And people taking it back to last season, criticising him, I don't get. It's worse than it was. It's supposed to be worse than it was last season, and also it's a complete reset in the summer. So you can't count even the stuff that went wrong last season in your analysis of what he's doing this season when it's supposed to be. It's been agreed. I thought we'd all agreed as supporters that it was going to be a complete reset. Walter Smith. One of the stories talking about stuff that pulls at your heartstrings. The BBC documentary or dedication to tribute to Walter when he passed away. For me, it was far too short, but I've watched it a few times, and the bit, one of the striking bits, is Bill Kenwright, who is a total lovey. Obviously a man who's made his money in the theatre, but he's Everton chairman at the time, and Everton had a lot of money troubles, and Walter suffered from that. Did well to keep them up, but it was just that the fans were against him because he wasn't a character. He had too much character, but he wasn't a character. It's ridiculous, their attitude towards him. And Bill Kenwright talks about, after the 3-0 loss to Middlesbrough at the Riverside, Walter comes in, it's time to sack Walter. And he can't do it. He just can't, because he loves this guy. Walter Smith is such a great guy. He's so decent and whatever, and he knows he's given it everything, and it's just not worked out for him. And so Walter comes into the office, he summons him to his office, and he can see that Bill Kenwright can't say the words. He just can't say it to him. And Walter just goes, I can't remember, he says to the secretary, lassie who's sitting outside, he gets a couple of cups of tea, and me and Bill are just going to discuss who's going to be the next manager of this great club. So he sits down and starts helping Bill Kenwright pick another manager. It was Davy Moyes. It was Davy Moyes, who apparently Rangers daft, but he played for Celtic. I'm pretty sure Davy Moyes played in that game. I've got it in my head that he played as a young man in that game. 79-80 season. It was the last time we beat Celtic at Parkhead for 9 years. Alec Miller scores that fantastic volley for the Willie Johnston throw-in that he bounces off Davy Province Heed right at the end, late on in the game. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm sure David Moyes played in that game for Celtic, but apparently he's Rangers daft. His brother played for Winton Rovers, so as far as I'm concerned, or Drossen Winton Rovers. As far as I'm concerned, he's staunch and definitely the kind of guy we want. It'd be really poetic, if he was the man. He was the man that came in to Everton going again, and that's what eventually got David Moyes the Manchester United job for just a few months. Just a few months that Walter was also at Manchester United. While David Moyes was at Everton, but remember Walter had a few 6 months at Manchester United, and was teaching Cristiano Ronaldo that he's going to get his legs broken if he keeps up with the step overs and what have you. Teaching Cristiano Ronaldo when to pass, and he learned so much when he come back to Rangers to replace Paul Le Guin. I was thinking, oh well, that's us. Well, we do well domestically, but the European thing's not going to work out. He only had that one amazing run to a goal from the Champions League final, but we're poor in Europe a lot of times under Walter. And of course, he gets us to our first European final in 36 years. So it'd be really fitting that David Moyes, who won the Conference League with West Ham, would come in and kind of complete the circle almost as a guy who steps into the breach for Walter's first love as a club. And yeah, but I just don't think. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think David. I think it might have been Johnny McFarlane talking about the Rangers review. I think he might have been the first guy I heard positing that this week because David Moyes is out of a job just now and is, and other people have been talking about it on social media. But I just don't know because even when Walter come back, the brilliant thing that's the most romantic period of my life supporting Rangers was Walter's second coming because we had no money. We had no money, no kit, not even a bottle. That's why that song meant so much then as well. But we had no money, and Walter was the one. He had to step forward and say that the bank's looking after the bank's basically running the club. And because it was Walter, because the standing he had, we just took it off. He was taking the club, and I feel as if Clement. I'm not. Listen, if I'm going to upset, I would never. I'm not taking Walter Smith's name in vain. That man just is a god to me. Walter Smith, I would never do that. But I think Clement has done a bit of that in terms of stepping up when the board's no there. What Walter Smith did at that time with the club is the same as what Willie Waddle did with the Ibrox disaster. The board was just, David Murray was away, his businesses were falling to pieces, so the global financial crisis had got him. He had stuff to do. He was keeping a low profile. The board weren't stepping up at all. Walter had the profile and the trust. He could do it. And I think Willie Waddle, obviously, infamously, during the Ibrox, the aftermath of the Ibrox disaster, he just got a hold of the club and just told them how to behave and went straight away obsessing about how to rebuild Ibrox and make it the safest, best stadium in the country is the least they could do. And I think Philippe Clement, there's no board. The board, we're just losing board members. We're not have a board at all. And Clement has been explaining all summer. I think that's also part of why he's got this extension to his contract, because he's been saying, I know exactly what state the club's in, and he doesn't have anything like that credit at all in the bank, the Rangers support, as we found out this week, but he knows what needs to be done, and I think he cares. I think he does actually care. So, but what I would also say is when Walter Smith come back in, it was phenomenal what he did, because we're in a total financial state. But the players he was left with, when he came in to replace Le Guin, although he obviously topped them up straight away, but then went through a couple of years without us being able to make any transfers, without us being able to buy anybody, and yet he won 2 major trophies every season and took us to a European final, had us in the Champions League. Different level, Walter, just a different level. But I think that I don't know if Davy Moyes could do that with what we've got just now. I think it would be difficult for any manager to make the best of what we've got just now. And if Philippe Clement knows the players and he's been in there with a plan so far, I think, as I heard, this might be Joshua Barry. I'm really bigging up the Rangers review in this one. He was talking about how, the fella at Brighton and what have you, there's a lot of hot young managers out there. I just mean hot to look at because, they're just young guys, young fit men, obviously. Just hot property in management terms is there's a lot of really young guys. And I've got a kind of tactical template, etc. We kind of get the top of the range young guys because not they're going to Manchester United, etc. They're going to Brighton and Hove Albion. But I feel as if Philippe Clement, albeit he's in his 50s, has got that kind of thinking. He's got that kind of, older players, younger players. He's got the energy to work with everybody, and he's got the vision, and he's got. We don't see it. The problem is we don't see it so far, but he definitely seems to have a plan, and he's focused on it. He's definitely. I think that's why he lost the plot a bit in the post-match reactions. At Pittodrie, he should never have said it was our best performance of the season. He's taken that a bit far there. One of our best performances of the season, we were abysmal. But the stuff about the offside kind of made a difference. Tav having that header, it's right at the last move we had in the game. He could have equalised. It is small margins, and he's saying that once we get a bit better, once he gets them a bit better trained, a bit more used to his system, we will change those margins and we'll start winning again. I better talk about the game, eh? I better talk about the game. Um, my name's Alec Anderson, by the way. Don't say what you're about to say. Look back before you leave my life. Be sure before you close that door, before you roll those dice, baby, think twice. That's all I'm saying. Just think twice. If we're going to sack, just think twice. We are back at Hampden. This time it's Hampden's a neutral venue for the League Cup semi-final. We've already had Hampden as a home league venue this season. We've had it at a home League Cup venue. We've had it as a home Champions League venue, and I've been to a couple of Scotland games there as well, and it's a home Nations League venue. So I just want to get Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup away this season, and that'll be the biggest kind of variety of Rangers hostings and away at Hampden. I think this is. I don't know exactly when the League Cup semi-final against Hearts last season was, but that was us. It must be 9 times. The 9th time we've been to Hampden in the space of 12 months. Am I including the Scottish Cup final in that? Yes, I am. Alright, so Motherwell were playing. They won the League Cup in 1950-51 season. October 1950, beat Hibs 3-0 in front of about 64,000. And then at the end of the following season, the Scottish Cup final, they beat Dundee 4-0 in front of 132,000, which is the biggest crowd ever in Scotland in a game not featuring the Old Firm or the Scotland national team. Amazing. So in the space of those 2 years, they completed, that was the 2 domestic trophies they hadn't won. They won the league in 1932, so that was 20 years and Motherwell won all 3 domestic trophies. Quite the achievement. Of course, they won the Scottish Cup again in 1991, beating Dundee United in the final this time, and that was Tommy McLean, Barcelona Bear. He's in charge of Motherwell, and his brother Jim McLean is in charge of Dundee United. Jim McLean, who had Walter Smith as assistant for so long, but before that he was in charge of United when Walter Smith played his last ever game of professional football for Dundee United against Motherwell in the League Cup in 1980-81 season, September 1980. It was a home and away affair. United won through. They won the League Cup that season. Walter Smith played against Motherwell in the second leg at Tannadice, and he was substituted for Ralph Milne, who scored the first goal I ever saw scored at Hampden in the League Cup. And that was his final of the following season, where United were going for 3 in a row and took the lead through Ralph Milne before Super Cooper, the man behind me, and also the late Ian Redford scored 2 goals late on to win that one in the old League Cup. And of course, Dundee United lost to Motherwell the same night we were losing to Aberdeen at Pittodrie. Ourselves and Motherwell, the only teams to beat Dundee United at Tannadice this season, amidst all the talk of Clement's terrible away record. And it is domestically, it is pretty bad, but both ourselves and Motherwell have beaten Dundee United at Tannadice, and ourselves and Aberdeen, Rangers and Aberdeen, are the only teams Motherwell haven't beaten on their travels in the league this season. That win the other night when they won 2-1 at Tannadice, it meant they went 3 points behind us, or 3 points behind us. They're 4th, Motherwell. They finished 9th last season under Stuart Kettlewell, who's more kind of idealist and ideologue, I would say. He's a hell of a nice guy, Stuart Kettlewell. You hear him in interviews, a real enthusiast, and we know how well he does. That was their 7th win in 11 away league games. I was hearing on the BBC on Wednesday night at Tannadice, and the second one in that run was against us in the league last season. You remember it well. They kind of dismantled us. That was the start of the end as far as the critics are concerned for Philippe Clement. The wheels started coming off. All this kind of patter. We'd no Cortez, we'd no Sema by that point in time. It's the undertow created by continually changing manager in the October-November period. So I think they'd beaten Livingston at the start of that run, and we were the second one. They beat Livingston away from home, then they beat us away from home, and it's 7 times out of 11 they've won away from home. They've got experts at the old set pieces. Tom Culshaw kind of routines, the set piece experts, according to the BBC. Although we watched Motherwell much this season, but it was a cracking free kick that they worked. Great free kick routine they worked for that first goal against United at Tannadice the other night. Lennon Miller, 18 years old he is, Lennon Miller, unbelievable. He's got a delivery, he starts these beautiful set pieces they've got, so we are going to have to watch ourselves, the state we are in defence these days. Both their goals were scored by the number 55. That's quite easy to remember. Tamanda Maswanishe. He's, I think, Zimbabwean. I think he's Zimbabwean. This is a neutral venue, of course, strictly speaking. But even if we're thinking, well, we've played at Hampden this season, we've already played Motherwell at Hampden. They've already beaten Hampden as well this season. We beat them 2-1. Of course, the first game we played at Hampden as a home venue this season, we played them off the park for 20 minutes. Within that 20 minutes, we scored an own goal. Robin Proper scoring for Motherwell. And that's the first of 2 goals we've conceded at home domestically. And I think the one we conceded against St Mirren last week was dodgy for various reasons. So, if you're going to talk about the lack of goals away from home, you got to that we're scoring. You got to look at the lack of goals we're conceding at home. Yeah. So it's kind of it's sacking territory for Philippe Clement if he loses this one. Definitely, I would say the fans will start getting they're really antsy anyway. I think that the biggest worry is the fans are just going to give up and stop going. A lot of talk about the fact that there's a public sale of tickets for this semi-final. People are starting to give up on the manager. And I'm not going to argue with anybody. I'm just putting forward what I feel as if it looks like a rebuild. I expect it to be a rebuild, and this is how I expected it to go. But if it goes any worse, then I don't know. Maybe we'll have to pull the trigger, what have you. But until then, that's me. Oh, that's the hour. We're coming up to the hour, as they say. So I'm going to hand you over to Dave in the newsroom. He's going to be telling you all about events in Israel, Ukraine, and the American election. But before that, it's Kathy with the traffic and travel.